Hey everyone, this is Mike, and today we're talking about healing, or more specifically, getting into healing. It's almost time for Endwalker to come out, and with our new expansion, we're also getting a new healer added to the game. And whenever a new job comes out, people will of course be interested in playing it regardless of if they've already played the role before. So today, I just want to go over some healer basics that I feel like every healer should know, and also just talk about some general stuff for those that are new to the role. So as a healer, your primary focus is to keep the group alive, and it's because of this responsibility that some players have what we like to call healer anxiety. They're scared to let the group down. When you play something like a DPS, especially in more casual content like dungeons, you basically have zero responsibility. You can die as much as you want and play bad, it won't affect your group's ability to clear content, just means that it will take a whole lot longer. As a healer, however, you making mistakes is a lot more detrimental to the group, as you dying usually means that the rest of the party will follow soon after. But if keeping yourself in the group alive is your only focus, then you won't have too much trouble. As you're leveling up, going through the story, there is normally very little content that will just straight up kill you if you get hit by mechanics. Yeah, you'll take some damage, maybe get a vuln stack here or there, but the chances that you'll actually get one-shot by something is fairly low, unless they decide to add more one-shot mechanics into Endwalker, but I doubt it. So just surviving isn't something that is hard. Now also sometimes, even when you're playing it super safe, people will still be hit by mechanics, and sometimes you'll be able to rectify their mistake by healing them in time before the next instance of damage comes out, but that's not always going to be the case. Sometimes people will die because of the mistakes that they've made, and then that is not on you. So don't feel bad about that, just throw them a rest and continue onwards. Now of course, healing is only part of your job. The other part is doing damage, because yes, a healer should do DPS, especially when we look at Sage, because the whole Cardia mechanic won't even work if you're not doing damage, but it isn't something that you should focus on when you're not comfortable yet. I've played healer for many years at this point, and I for the most part know what to expect when it comes down to how much damage my party is going to be taking. So because I know when healing will be needed, I also know when I cannot heal and do DPS instead. That is something that comes with experience. When starting out, play it safe and you'll soon see how much time there actually is that you can spend doing damage instead. Now another reason why we can DPS so much as a healer is because damage in 14 usually comes periodically. It's not a constant stream of outgoing damage, for most cases at least. And to help with these periodic instances of damage, we have what I like to call free heals. Now the reason why I call them that is because they don't impact your ability to deal damage. Let's take Scholar for example. And let's also say that we already have that change in Endwalker where our damage GCDs on healers have that shorter cast time. So as I'm pressing my broils, my tank will be taking auto attacks from the boss, and well, I can use Excog on them so that once they drop below 50% they get a heal. Excog on cooldown, no problem, I can throw them my fairy tether instead. Or maybe my tank isn't taking enough damage to warrant using any of these abilities, so the passive embraces from my fairy might be enough. Then the boss does raid wide AoE that needs healing, well I can just order my fairy to use Whispering Down, and then our party will slowly regen back to full. Do I need faster AoE healing, because the boss will follow it up with another raid wide soon after, then I can use Indom instead, or if that's on cooldown I can use Fey Blessing. And then we still have our Seraph left, and these are all things that I can be doing while I am constantly pressing Broil. And once I've run out of all of these resources, or if it wasn't enough, then I can still fall back onto my GCD healing. But as you can see, we have a lot of tools that allow us to heal while we are doing DPS. Now of course these are things that you will need to learn to use with experience. Each healer has their own suite of tools that they can use, and thus it will also take some time for you to get used to making use of this whole healing kit, rather than fall back on the trusty GCD healing that you always have available to you. So when starting out and you aren't familiar with all of these healing tools yet, then you can just make use of your healing GCDs, as that will always be able to get you through pretty much everything. It's just that once you do get the hang of utilizing these off-global cooldown healing tools, then you'll also see that healers can contribute a lot of damage to the party as well. Of course, your primary focus is to keep people alive, but when no healing is needed, or when your off-global cooldowns can take care of the healing for you, then there is no reason to not DPS. Now, I know that it's easy to just talk about it all, but how about I put it into practice? So for my little show and tell, I'm just going to be playing Scholar in a dungeon, because that is what you'll most likely be doing the most when you're leveling Sage throughout the next expansion as well. So what I've done right here is I've thrown an Excog on my tank, which is that thing that procs whenever they drop below 50%, and I also gave them an Adlo before the pull started, but that Adlo is now gone. I'm also going to be throwing my fairy tether on them just in case, to make sure that they have enough HP to survive the pull. Now outside of that, I'm not doing any healing right now. I have the Excog on my tank, I also have my fairy giving them that tether. Outside of that, I am just spamming some AoE damage to try and kill these mobs as fast as possible, because of course your tank is going to be using mitigation, and whenever that mitigation runs out, that is when your tank is going to start taking the most damage. So if you can kill as many mobs as possible before that mitigation runs out, then of course you're going to make your own job easier by adding in DPS as well. So you can see my Excog triggered, so I'm just going to be giving them a new one. It didn't even trigger because my tank went low enough, it just triggered because the timer ran out on the buff. And then we're going to be moving on to our boss fight over here. Again, just like before, they still have the Excog on from before, and then I just gave them an Adlo. There's no reason not to give them one, it just mitigates some auto attacks. Now, unfortunately enough, this is a situation that you will sometimes run into as a healer, and that is when you have multiple ranged on your party. My tank is on one side of the arena, my other two DPS players are on the other side of the arena, and that means that I can't always reach them with all of my AoE healing. So what can you do instead? Well, for example here, I'm just gonna lustrate my Black Mage, which is a single target heal, to make sure that they at least get that, and then the rest of my party got healed up by the Whispering Dawn, or at least that's what I was trying to do. Only our Red Mage got hit. The Dark Knight, for example, didn't get hit by the heal, so instead I just gave them an Excog, which will hopefully take care of it all. You also got a Vuln stack, which is a bit unfortunate, so they'll be taking a little bit more damage, but nothing too bad. Outside of that, no real healing needed right now, so I'm just pressing my DPS buttons. Then our tank is going to be getting a Tank Buster over here, so they'll take a little bit more damage, but of course because they were using mitigation, it already mitigated quite a bit of that. And now I'm just waiting for my Excog to come off cooldown. Now of course, if I got scared here, I could have just given my tank an Adlo and that would have been fine. But because I knew that the Tank Buster just happened and the boss isn't really doing much outside of auto attacks, I had time to just wait for my Excog to come off cooldown. Over here I also summoned my Seraph to just put shields onto the party because I knew that there was going to be multiple instances of raid-wide damage, so the Seraph just takes care of all of that through shielding, and then I can use my second Seraph usage over here to again put up a second shield for when the raid-wide AoE happens over here, and then I basically don't really have to heal all that much. I also decided to use my Whispering Dawn again, but again, just like before, not everybody got hit by that because they were just too spread out. Now, if at any point I am getting too scared here because people are all over the place and not everybody is getting all of my healing, I can just throw an Adlo on the tank when they're getting too low, or I can reposition and maybe put up a Sucker so that I can heal my Black Mage and my Red Mage, and then of course keep myself alive as well. But that was never necessary. My tank stayed alive by just the Excog and then my Fairy using their Embraces. I can use my Aetherflow stacks on, for example, lustrating the Black Mage because they got hit as well. They need a little bit extra healing, so I'm just gonna give them my Fairy Tether real quick. Only for a few ticks because they don't need too much, so I can just take it off right here. And then if I want to, I still have 70 gauge left that I can just throw on my tank if they end up dropping low. And even then I still have my Aetherflow stack left as well for an extra lustrate if I ended up needing it. But I didn't, and we made it through our boss fight just fine. So as you can see, I didn't even use all of my healing tools all of the time to keep my party alive. And if I did get into a situation where I started to panic or I ran out of stuff to use, then I could have just spammed some Suckers, given the tank an Adlo. Whatever you feel like you need to do to keep the party alive is fine, because that is your primary goal. And especially in content where there is no DPS check, play it as safe as you feel like you need to, and then once you feel more comfortable on healer, that is where you can start adding in more DPS. So hopefully this was enough of a show and tell to make any up-and-coming healers more interested in trying out the role, and for those that had some reservations about how hard it might be to keep the party alive, then you've now seen how easy it actually is. And I didn't even play it safe. I could have done many more things to make it even safer for my party. So if that's what you need to do to feel safe when healing, then by all means do that. But that's gonna do it for me. If you have any more questions that you would like to ask, then you're always free to leave a comment down below. And with that, I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my Patreons for their support, and I'll see you in the next one.